Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to the Smart RN channel. My name is Henry. Today we are going to start looking at the respiratory system. And in this system, we are going to look at those conditions that can affect our respiratory system. But before we do that, we'll start by looking at the anatomy of the respiratory system. Now, the major function of the respiratory system is to move air in and out of our bodies. And this movement of air is achieved through the processes of ventilation and respiration. Ventilation refers to the movement of air in and out of our lungs. And this is achieved through the processes of inspiration and expiration. Inspiration is when air is moved into our lungs. When we breathe in, we are actually inhaling air. So inspiration occurs through inhalation of air from the outside into our lungs. On the other hand, expiration occurs when we move air out of our lungs onto the outside. So when we exhale, we are actually participating in expiration. We are expelling air from our lungs. So when we breathe in, that is inhalation. When we breathe out, that is expiration. Now, on the other hand, respiration is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide at the alveoli level. Now, in the alveoli, oxygen moves from the alveoli into the bloodstream, and the carbon dioxide moves from the bloodstream into the alveoli, ready to be expelled from our bodies. Now, this occurs, or this movement of oxygen and carbon dioxide across the alveoli membrane occurs as a result of diffusion. Remember, diffusion is the movement of molecules from areas of higher concentration to those of lower concentration. So in the alveoli, there is more oxygen concentration in the alveoli and not in the blood. So the oxygen crosses the membrane into the blood. In the alveoli, there is less concentration of carbon dioxide when compared to the blood. So CO2 moves from the blood onto the alveoli so that it can be expelled out of our body. So the respiratory system enables the movement of air in and out of our bodies via the processes of ventilation and respiration. Now, what you have to understand is that respiration results in oxygenated blood. In other words, respiration results in red blood cells picking oxygen and then transferring or moving this oxygen to the various parts of the body. Now, that means that the circulatory system is very important to our respiratory system. The cardiovascular system, the heart pumps the blood. It is the heart that pumps the blood into the lungs to pick up oxygen, and then it also pumps that oxygenated blood from the lungs to the various parts of the body so as to supply the tissues with oxygen. This same blood also picks up carbon dioxide from the various body tissues and delivers it into the lungs, ready to be expelled from our bodies via expiration. So the circulatory system or the cardiovascular system is very, very important to our respiratory system. Now, there are two parts of the respiratory system. We have the upper respiratory system and the lower respiratory system. The upper respiratory system is made up of the mouth, the nose, the pharynx or the throat, and the larynx. Now, the upper respiratory system, as we have just said, is made up of the mouth and the nares or the nose. Now, air enters into our nares. We have got two nares. So air enters into the nares and flows all the way to the nasopharynx. Now, the nares or the noses are aligned with hair. And the purpose of this hair is to filter out air and remove any foreign objects that may be found within that particular air. So the hair that lines up our nares performs the major function of filtering any foreign objects from inhaled air. Now, once the air moves from the nares, it comes into the nasopharynx. In the nasopharynx, we have got mucous membranes. And these mucous membranes have got mucus that traps any foreign objects that may have come in through with this particular air. At the same time, it also humidifies this particular air and also warms the air. So the air is humidified, it is filtered and warmed in this particular nasopharynx. In the mouth, air that goes through the mouth comes all the way to the oropharynx. Just like the nasopharynx, the oropharynx also has got mucous membranes, which also filter the air, they humidify the air, and even warm this particular air before now this air comes down to the laryngopharynx. So the laryngopharynx is just found at the base of the tongue. Now, from the laryngopharynx, the air enters into the larynx. Now, this larynx has got vocal cords. So when air passes through or when air flows through the vocal cords, then we have got the vocalization of air. So we produce sound. We are able to speak or we are able to produce sound as a result of air passing through or passing through this particular vocal cord. So now, at the top of this larynx, we have a leaf-shaped organ, which is referred as the epiglottis. This epiglottis performs the major function of preventing aspiration. Now, what happens is that when we are swallowing anything, when we are swallowing food, this epiglottis normally covers or closes this particular laryngo or this larynx, so that this swallowed object does not enter into the windpipe, but instead goes into this particular esophagus. So the epiglottis is a very important part that prevents aspiration of either food or any object or even liquids into this particular windpipe. Now, so that is the upper respiratory system. The nares or the nose, the mouth, the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and even the laryngopharynx and the larynx. So this composed of what referred as the upper respiratory system. Remember, this larynx is the voice box with those vocal cords which are normally vocalized when air passes through them. So remember, the major function of this epiglottis is to prevent aspiration, so that objects or water or fluid or anything swallowed cannot move into the windpipe. So it is normally open when we are not swallowing, but when you are swallowing, the epiglottis covers that particular larynx so that nothing comes down. Now, the lower respiratory system is made up of the trachea and the lung. This consists of the lower respiratory system. Now, the trachea extends from the larynx all the way to this place where we have got bifurcation, bifurcation of the trachea. Now, this area is referred to as the carina, the place where the trachea divides into the main bronchi is referred to as the carina. If you look at the trachea, it has got C-shaped cartilages on the anterior side, while the posterior side is made up of smooth muscle. And this smooth muscle is shared with the esophagus. So these C-shaped cartilages are only found on the anterior or the front side of the trachea. But behind, we have the smooth muscle, which is shared with that particular esophagus. So at this place here, at the carina, the trachea divides into the right main bronchi and the left main bronchi. The left main bronchi leads to the left lung, while the right main bronchi leads to the right lung. And one thing I want you to notice is that the right main bronchi is shorter, wider, and near vertical when compared to the left main bronchi. Now, as a result of this, any object which is aspirated is likely to enter the right main bronchi, because we have said it is wide when compared to the to the left main bronchi. It is also very short and it is near vertical. So any aspirated object is likely to enter into that right main bronchi. Now, from the bronchi, either right or left, we have the lobar bronchi. The lobar bronchi are now those ones that enter into the lobules of the lung. Remember, the right lung has got 3 lobes. We have got the right upper lobe, we have the right middle lobe, and the right lower lobe. And the left lung has got the left upper lobe and the left lower lobe. So the the left lung has got only 2 lobes, while the right lung has got 3 lobes. So from the right main bronchi or the left main bronchi, we go to the lobar bronchi. These are the parts that actually innervate or enter the lobes of our lung. Then, from the lobar bronchi, we go to the bronchioles. The lobar bronchi divide into the bronchioles. Then from the bronchioles, we have got the terminal bronchioles. And then from the terminal bronchioles, we have the respiratory bronchioles, which end up dividing into the alveolar ducts. So remember this. We have the trachea, then we have the right main bronchi and the left main bronchi, which divides into the bronchioles, and the bronchioles divide into the terminal bronchioles. Then from the terminal bronchioles, we have the respiratory bronchioles, which end up dividing into the alveolar ducts, which enter into this particular alveolar sacs. And groups of alveolar sacs form what we call, groups of alveoli form alveolar sacs. So we have the alveolar sacs, which are innervated by alveolar ducts branching off this particular respiratory bronchiole. So that's how air flows from the upper respiratory system into the lower respiratory system. Now, I want you to note that gas exchange occurs at the alveolar level. This is the level where gas exchange occurs. In other words, carbon dioxide moves from the bloodstream onto these lungs to be expelled from our bodies, while oxygen moves from our lungs or the alveolar into the bloodstream so that it can be taken to the rest of the body to actually to help in these particular body tissues. Now, I want us to look at 2 things here. We have got 2 terms. I have got what we call dead space and a shunt. Now, dead space refers to the bronchotracheotomy, which does not participate in gas exchange, or it refers to that part or portion of the respiratory system that has got gas or air but does not participate in gas exchange. Now, we have got two types of dead space. We have got anatomical dead space and alveolar dead space. Anatomical dead space refers to all those parts that run all the way from the nose and the mouth all the way up to the respiratory bronchus. Remember, the respiratory, these portions of the upper respiratory system, they have got air, but they don't participate in air exchange. When you come to the trachea and the main bronchi, all the way to the bronchus and the terminal bronchus, respiratory bronchus, they do not participate in gas exchange. So gas exchange begins at the level of the respiratory bronchus to the alveolar ducts and even the alveoli. So these portions of the tracheobronchial tree, which have got gas but they are not participating in gas exchange, are referred to as anatomical dead space. Now, alveolar dead space refers to that alveoli which has got air, and despite the fact that it is supposed to be participating in gas exchange, it doesn't do that. Why? This is because maybe the alveolar is not innervated by blood vessels. Remember, there are blood capillaries all around the alveoli, and these blood capillaries are the ones that bring in blood that has to be oxygenated, or they bring in blood with the carbon dioxide which has to be expelled from the body. So if we have an alveoli which is not innervated by any blood vessels, then that one is referred as an alveolar dead space. So alveolar dead space is that alveoli, it has got air, but this air is not participating in gas exchange because there are no blood vessels innervating this particular alveoli. So that's what is referred to as alveolar dead space. So anatomical dead space plus alveolar dead space refers to results in what we call physiological dead space. So physiological dead space is both anatomical dead space plus alveolar dead space. Now, in a healthy person, physiological dead space should be equal to anatomical dead space. That is a healthy person. But when the physiological dead space now involves alveolar dead space, then that person is not healthy. Remember, alveoli should participate in gas exchange. So when they are not doing so, that means there is something wrong. That's why I say that physiological dead space should always be equal to anatomical dead space. Now, apart from dead space, we also have a shunt. Now, a shunt refers to that blood which is not participating in gas exchange. Remember, we have just said that with dead space, it is the tracheobronchial tree which does not participate in gas exchange. But with a shunt, it is blood which is not participating in gas exchange. Now, we have got two types of shunts. One, we have the anatomical shunt, and two, we have the alveolar shunt. Anatomical shunt is that blood that moves from the right ventricle to the left ventricle without going through the lungs. In other words, this is blood that does not have oxygen at all. There are some people who might have congenital problems. For example, they might have a hole that is extending from the right ventricle direct to the left ventricle. So when blood comes into the right ventricle, some of this blood, whereas some goes in the lung, some blood will just cross over through that opening into the left ventricle to be pumped to the rest of the body. So that blood does not have oxygen at all. So that one is referred to as anatomical shunt. Then we also have alveolar shunt. This is blood that actually reaches the alveoli or the lungs, but it does not participate in oxygen exchange as a result of the problem with this particular alveoli. Look at this, for example. If this alveoli duct is blocked here, if there is a blockade here, then there is no air which is going to enter into this alveoli. So these blood capillaries around this alveoli are going to bring in blood and leave that area without getting oxygenated at all. So this is referred to as an alveolar shunt. So remember, a shunt refers to blood which does not participate in gaseous exchange, while a dead space refers to the tracheobronchial tree which does not participate in gas exchange. And very important, you must remember that gas exchange occurs at the alveoli level. The alveoli level have got a thin membrane, and as such, gases are able to pass or to go through this respiratory membrane. Oxygen from the alveoli into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide from the bloodstream into the alveoli to be expelled from the body. And remember, we said that one is as a result of this particular diffusion. So that is the main function of the respiratory system. Remember, there are other functions of the respiratory system. For example, the respiratory system is very important in speech. Why? Because when air moves over or through the vocal cords, we are able to vocalize, or we are able to produce words or even sound. We also have water exchange. We can breathe out water vapor through the air that we breathe out. So there is water vapor being expelled from our bodies through respiration. As we speak, we can release water vapor. Then there is also acid-base balance. Sometimes when we have got, remember acid-base balance, when we have that alkalosis and acidosis. So when we have, for example, alkalosis, that means there is a high concentration of bicarbonate in our bodies. The respiratory system normally holds onto the carbon dioxide so as to try and elevate the levels of carbon dioxide to counter the bicarbonate levels. So the lungs also participate in acid-base balance on top of respiration. Expelling water through air, and also vocalization or producing of sound or speech. So that brings us to the end of this introduction on the anatomy of the respiratory system. So in our next videos, we are going to start looking at those conditions that can affect our respiratory system. So just remember to drop a comment, like this video, share this video, and if you are not a subscriber to this channel, I request you to subscribe today. From me here, it is a goodbye.